Hello, welcome back to the series ISSNAF Stories. Today we are with Professor Alessandro Sette of La Jolla Institute for Immunology. Thank you for being with us today.
A pleasure to be with you.
So let's start with Italy and your upbringing and studies there.
Yes, so my family is originally from Bari and Sant'Ermincolle in southern Italy. I was born and raised in Rome, and I went to school in Rome. I went to La Sapienza, and there I graduated in Scienze Biologiche. And then was a little bit in Italy. I worked a little bit at Casaccia Enea with Professor Doria, and then came to United States for a postdoc. Was supposed to be a couple of years, and then we were lucky to make very good progress in Denver, and I stayed a little bit longer. Then we left Denver. We started a biotech company in La Jolla. That's how I came to San Diego. And then after that biotech company, which was early years for biotech, then I started another company called Epimmune. And finally, in 2003, I decided to go back to academia, my love for basic science. And I came back to La Jolla Institute, and I've been here ever since. And I guess that back then, even in Italy, in the Italian years of formation, was a theme that really grabbed me, is that really the interface between basic science and applied science. So what really drew me to immunology while I was at La Sapienza was that immunology was already very well developed as an exact science with molecular biology behind it and so forth, but also had a direct impact in understanding disease and intervening in disease.
And in this area, you are one of the world's most cited researchers. And so you have devoted more than 30 years of study toward understanding the immune response and developing strategies against cancers and infectious diseases. So since we don't have the time to make justice to all your research, I encourage our viewers to check out a few resources related to this work here below in the video's comments. So more recently, your work on COVID-19 has been mentioned by Dr. Fauci in Congress, holding up your paper. Let's watch the clip.
Thank you very much, sir. I'll very quickly try to answer that. So there are two limbs of the immune response. One is an antibody, which is a protein that is made by the cells of the body to bind to the virus and is usually the hallmark of protection against infection. There's another limb of the immune response called the cellular immune response of T cells. And those T cells have the capability of essentially suppressing or killing cells that are infected and preventing the cells that are infected from making new viruses. So there are two parts of it. Even though one is generally felt to be protecting against the initial infection, the other is an important complementary. And you're right, the Swedes came out with a paper, and also a paper from NIH grantees from La Jolla just came out in the journal Cell, showing the same thing, that in individuals who were infected and recovered, they had T-cell responses, but importantly, there was T-cell reactively also detected in non-exposed individuals, which means that maybe there's some memory from other coronaviruses that are benign cold viruses that you were exposed to that might, and I say might, explain why some people, even children, might be protected, that they had exposure that's not measured in antibody, but measured by T cells. This is work that we really need to pursue. We're just at the cusp of understanding the importance of this type of response in COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you comment on this?
Well, I mean, well, first of all, it was shocking. We would not expect that Dr. Fauci would showcase our papers. And later on, actually, he continued. He showcased subsequent papers in the hearing at the White House and so forth. But that was a shock and huge honor, of course. And I remember I was at home because I was in a meeting with a clinical group via Zoom, and someone said, Fauci is talking about your paper on TV. And it's like, yeah, right. And when he said it was right, really, this was unexpected. It was the first time that was so in direct line of what we were doing having an impact in real time. And obviously, COVID has been a very unforeseen set of circumstances. For us, also added a dimension that we had not experienced before, which was the dimension of communication. So we were constantly in interviews, in the news, on Twitter, and apart from actually doing the science in the lab, everybody wanted to know what was going on, and there was a lot of confusion and misinformation. And so it was another dimension of spending time actually to try to deliver a message which was fact-based and was simple without a lot of big words. And in fact, that was one of the things that I admired in the messaging of people like Dr. Fauci, really keeping it short, keeping it real and fact-based, and things that people could understand and use.
Yeah, and the world really needed that, especially from the experts like you guys. So that was already almost 3 years ago, right? Dr. Fauci is in Congress. What can you tell us about your work since until now on COVID-19? And so what have you learned 3 years in?
Right. So our work earlier on, we started really basically defining what kind of immune response is linked to COVID. And in fact, our first studies, we purposely looked at the immune responses that we would see of people that had come out of COVID, convalescent, but did not get very sick, because we wanted to understand what's the trick, what is the immune response that is associated with a good outcome. And we saw that apart from the antibodies, which of course are very, very important, this cellular immunity, T cells, are also very important, not in preventing the infection, but in telling how sick or not you will be. And we continued to study with T cells. And in fact, it turned out that while the variants, the Delta, the Omicron, can escape the antibody response, they don't escape very well the immune response that associated with T cells, the cellular immune response. And in fact, this is what we're seeing today in large part, that the protection caused by previous infection or vaccination is not very strong in terms of preventing an infection, but it prevents severe disease. So there has been in this last periods a dissociation. People get infected over time. We've all seen, wave after wave, and everybody has been infected, sometimes multiple times, and if not, certainly family, friends. But the vaccines have held their ground in preventing largely death and severe disease. And so really now what we're seeing is that the majority of the people that are getting very sick from COVID are either people that have not been boosted or infected recently, so that they have, and in particular also the older population. So we're getting to a situation where there are segments of a population that we need to protect, but overall we're going hopefully towards having an immunity wall that will protect from severe disease.
Can you tell us about the two important databases that you're developing and hosting? I believe they're called the Immune Epitope Database and the Cancer Epitope Database.
Yes, so the Immune Epitope Database is a freely available resource, which we started actually in about 2003 or so, and it's funded by the NIH, and catalogs all immune reactivities that are not our data, just everything that is published against allergies, infectious diseases, and autoimmunity, diabetes or arthritis, and transplantation and so forth. And the cancer database is more recent because of the success of the IDB. The National Cancer Institute also decided to develop one part specifically to catalog cancer epitopes. And basically, this is a resource where any researcher can go and look what is known, what parts of a particular microbe are recognized by immune responses, it's what type of immune response is there, and so forth. And in fact, we used this very early on in the case of SARS-CoV-2 back in February. I mean, when basically there was no case or very few cases outside of China, but the sequence of the virus was already known. And when we looked, we realized, like many others, that this virus was very similar to the old SARS-1 that had circulated years ago. And in that case, was already known what does immune response look like, what parts was already known that, for example, spike was recognized. So we were able to model and predict, but this particular parts of the virus is likely what the immune system will recognize. And we were able also to start to go to the lab and start building chemical pieces to be able to measure the immune response against the new virus. So that is one example of how this database can be used, and it's really accessible. It has thousands of visits, and we continue to capture all the new data that is coming out and entering in the database every week.
You emphasize the fact that you're sharing these databases with everyone in the world, and I will think that nobody appreciates the need for sharing and collaborating more than immunologists. So can you comment on the scientific collaboration between North America and Italy in your field? What do you think is most successful, and what are the major challenges?
Well, in general, the collaboration scientifically between Italy and the United States is strong, and there are free, open channels of communications, and the collaborations have several different manifestations. So one is just labs that come together from Italy and the United States to work together on some examples. For example, in the case of COVID, we have collaborated with many different labs in Italy, from Naples to Pavia to Rome to Genova and so forth. And like often in science, the success is a teamwork.
And is the collaboration with the hospital still going on?
Yeah. And the other aspect is scientific training and exchange. Like it happened to me, there are young scientists that come to the United States to train, and sometimes they go back, sometimes they don't. But certainly that has been a very lively exchange. I mean, we've been lucky to get some really outstanding scientists coming from Italy to join my lab. For example, Alba Grifoni, which is now newly appointed professor at the La Jolla Institute. It also goes both ways. We have, for example, one American graduate student, Allison, that is getting her PhD at the University of Genoa. So the exchange can go in both
directions.
Good
to hear. That's good to
Yes.
hear. Usually it's the other direction, but it's good.
And so, but this is a very important component of the interactions between United States and Italy.
So thinking about the longer term future, what are you most excited and what are you most worried about future directions in your field?
Well, in my field, broadly in the area of immunology, there is a lot of progress that has been made recently in cancer and cancer vaccines that have not been fully successful as yet, but there is mounting excitement. And in other areas in general, we have been fascinated and making good progress in understanding the immune component of neurodegenerative diseases, which is another huge topic. And both in the United States and in Italy, the general population tends to be older as time goes by. And people that are older also have increased risk of Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and so forth. And there is actually an immune component that underlies these diseases. So we're studying that very actively, and it's exciting. Another area which is unfortunately still always an area of concern is new infectious diseases, new pandemics or outbreaks. And in the last few months, we've been, of course, we still continue to work a lot on COVID. But in the last few months, for example, we have been busy with Mpox, that was a very worrisome outbreak, which now is contained largely. But still, there's a lot of things that needs to be understood. Same questions, more or less, that people have with COVID, in the sense of if someone has had a natural infection, how long are they protected from reinfection for? And if someone was vaccinated, how good or how similar, how different is the type of protection induced by natural infection versus vaccination? Is the vaccine long-lasting? In the case of Mpox, for example, a lot of the cases occurred in men having sex with men, and in people that are HIV positive. And so the community wants to know, is the vaccine going to work differently in someone who is HIV positive or not? Is the protection different? And so those are something. In general, the whole area of pandemic preparedness, there's all these other, the NIH has identified 8 broad family of viruses that are potential concern, and members of this virus family could be behind a new outbreak or potential pandemic. And so we're working on developing tools and strategies to be able to at least start with a head start in the study of these viral families. And we hope that nobody will ever hear about a new pandemic, but certainly we need to be we're not letting our guard down.
Let's talk about ISSNAF now. So you're a member of its scientific council. How and why did you become involved with ISSNAF, and what would you think is the most important role that ISSNAF has played so far?
Gosh, I can't even remember the first time I heard about ISSNAF. It's been a very long time when I actually was at much earlier stages in my career, and ISSNAF is for me, ISSNAF is a way to remain and enhance my connections with Italy in the dimension of scientific colleagues and interactions and so forth. And in terms of what ISSNAF does, it does that in the sense that it's really a point of aggregation, a point of exchange, and I think more and more will become a point of reference for example, people that from Italy are looking at a experience of training in the United States, and or in general the other way around, and a repertoire of resources, of ideas. ISSNAF also has a very active program in premi, in awards that catalyze and recognize young scientists or in different areas, and that's another important component.
Yeah, I believe that Alba Grifoni was awarded recently,
yes, she was.
A few years ago. Yes. So we mentioned briefly the Italian diaspora. So is it only a brain drain for Italy? Do we contribute to Italian society? And if so, how? And what is there a role that ISSNAF can play on this issue?
Well, I mean, the issue of Italian diaspora is a complex one. As we alluded, while it can happen that there's a flux in the other direction, without having any real hard data, I imagine that the majority of the flux is from Italy towards North America. So that there is a dual component. Certainly, the United States is often offers very strong training opportunities, and also it's not just it's not a point of better or worse, but is common, especially for a young person, to be exposed to a different environment. It's creative because it challenges you, and it's a good thing. Now, of course, that is in some cases when the person goes back, that is obviously a net gain. In some cases, when the person doesn't come back, then it's a diaspora. So obviously, on one hand, it's important to catalyze. I like mentoring programs, for example, is another dimension of ISSNAF, and that is as I get further in my career, I move from being all about me, by appreciating almost becoming a grandfather. No, it's like, it's not all about me. It's actually, you have great pleasure in young people being successful. So mentoring is important, also to create and help, if possible in a small measure, to catalyze and help the Italian environment to have an environment that entices people also to go back. So it's a lot to be done, and a lot of satisfactory outcomes can be coming out of that.
What do you enjoy the most when you go back to Italy?
Oh, well, we go back almost every year. Of course, the last 2 or 3 years has been a little bit of an interruption, but we actually went back last year. We love Italy. My wife is American, was born in Washington, D.C., but actually just this month got her Italian citizenship. So
congratulations.
She's Italian now.
Congratulations.
And the kids love it. So still have family, brother, cousins, lots of friends. So we visit. Also, I still have the masseria, the family masseria in Santerre Vincole. So we go back
nice.
there. But also we go every time. I try to go to a different place, and we try to avoid the places most frequented by American tourists. So my measure of satisfaction is when we are somewhere and there is no one there. But it's and so we've done different parts. So we go to Sicily. Last year we went to the Salento, Lecce. We go to Bologna or Orvieto, Umbria. Italy is so full of places that are fantastic.
Have you been to Trieste?
I have not been to Trieste.
Well, next time.
It's on it'll be on the list. But yeah, there's so much to do, and each region is culturally rich and different, and the food is different. I mean, it's well, I love Italy, of course.
Yeah, we do. So finally, what piece of advice would you give to a young immunology student from Italy?
Well, it's it might sound cliche, but it's really to follow what you want to do, and to persevere. I think it is very important to have training abroad, and to have also a breadth of experiences. So to a little bit try different things, which doesn't mean you should completely do something different, but it's important in your training to explore different techniques, to be in a different environment for a while, and so to understand how different labs may function. And the different labs have different styles. You know, some mentors are very hands-on, some mentors are very hands-off, and it's important to understand what works for you. And also, perhaps one thing that was different compared to when I was taking my first steps is that today there is a lot more opportunities for other careers related to science, not only academic, but there's a vibrant pharmaceutical, biotech environment. There are other opportunities, teaching. There's many things that one can do as a scientist beyond the academic university career.
Well, thank you so much, Alex. It was very, very interesting.
Oh, it was fun to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.